Let us understand the original inhabitants of Abuja. There's been a lot of issues around it, and everybody has been like, okay, what more can we do for those people? What else do they expect from the Federal Capital Territory?
We are no more interested on relocation. We are more interested on having our own state, which Constitution has proffered us that privilege and the right to own an estate. So even the present administration, 2023 judgment between the APC and PDP has also confirmed that. So what we are asking this present federal government to do is to linguish and also separate the office of the Mr. President and the governor of FCT.
I'm not a civil servant. I'm not a trader. Then you give me 2 rooms without provision for farmland. You have denied me the opportunity to conduct my economic activity and earn a living.
The Federal Capital Territory is a place of unity for all Nigerians to come together. However, we also recognize the fact that this land belongs to some indigenous Nigerians. Over the years, they have come up with their own cries and concerns as to how the Federal Capital Territory is the kind of treatment they're getting from the Federal Capital Territory. This is one of the things we're going to be looking at on Black White today. And my name is Adekunle Adebanjo, and with me today, I have Precious hanging out here. How are you doing, Precious?
I'm good.
And we have members of the FCT Stakeholder Assembly with us. They are coming to be discussing these issues because the concerns really matters, and then we need to hear them and hear from them and how these things affect them and their daily lives. So with me, or to my far left, is Dr. Ali Baka, as popularly known. And then to the right is Commandant Isaac David. You're welcome to the program.
Nice.
So let us understand the original inhabitants of Abuja. There's been a lot of issues around it, and everybody has been like, okay, what more can we do for those people? What else do they expect from the Federal Capital Territory? Everybody knows that from the days of El Rufai and the others, there's been a lot of arrangements. You have resettlement areas everywhere. Many of them got houses, and so many things are happening. Up till now, it is amazing to know that there's still cries from your constituents that they are not getting justice and what they deserve in this Federal Capital Territory. Tell us more about your plight.
Thank you very much. Let me start by thanking Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for doing what no other president had done for us, the original inhabitants of the FCT. He gave us a seat on the Federal Executive Council. So we have an original inhabitant as a minister. Let me also thank him for giving us a workaholic minister, Barrister Nyesom Wike, who has done a lot in the provision of infrastructure in the FCT. Even though the infrastructure is more for other people, it's not for us, because we don't have what it takes to enjoy this infrastructure. And in the process of providing this infrastructure, he has stepped on our toes. We are aware, we've not forgotten, just recently there was the case of Gishiri. We are in the course of building a road corridor. Some original inhabitant communities, their houses had to be demolished. And as we're talking now, I'm not sure compensation has been paid. And then we'll come into the details of what compensation entails. Because their houses were demolished, and you are given 3 weeks to move out. And we saw on the television, I think the AIT carried it too, how the original inhabitants were scampering to pick their luggages and to find a place to resettle. After that, we had another demolition in Karsana, and then the recent one is Kuchibena. Now, for us to get into the details of the challenges we are facing, we have to go back in history. We have to go back to 1976, when the FCT was created. It's very important because there are many Nigerians who don't understand the policy changes that are taking place. When General Murtala Mohammed pronounced this place as the Federal Capital Territory, the initial policy direction was that everybody, every life, living being in the FCT would be resettled outside the FCT. Adequately resettled, resettlement houses would be built. And so we had the first case, the first model of Wuse, you know of New Wuse along Kaduna Road. This Wuse that where we have the stadium today, they were there, and Maitama and other settlements were taken out of the Federal Capital City. A new settlement was built for them. In other words, houses were provided for them. Compensation was paid for their economic trees. Compensation was paid for denying them the opportunity to utilize their land, and several other things. Now, along the way, Murtala died, and Obasanjo took over as the president. And he now said, okay, what's the cost implication of this resettlement and compensation? He appointed consultants from the University of Ibadan, and they gave him a cost of 2.8 billion.
Way back then.
Way back then, 1978, 2.8 billion naira. And you know the naira was more powerful than the dollar. And Obasanjo said, look, the federal government doesn't have that kind of money to spend on resettlement.
And Nigeria budget was then as 4 billion, I think so.
Okay. That Nigeria doesn't have that kind of money to spend on resettlement and compensation. And that even if they had the money, they needed money to start the provision of infrastructure in the
Federal
capital FCT.
Okay.
Now, it now shows that right from 1978, when Obasanjo was president, that the welfare of the original inhabitants was not priority. The priority was building the city,
at whatever cost.
At whatever cost. And so, people now suggested, the consultant now suggested, okay, we have 3-4 options. Either you reduce the size of the federal capital, because all you need is about 1,450 square kilometers for the federal capital.
Was that the original plan?
Let's not forget that the federal capital, the new federal capital, was intended to accommodate administrative structures, administrators, and
Public overriding.
Yeah, some public buildings. Okay. It was not for everybody. It was to move the federal capital, the seat of the federal government, from Lagos to Abuja. And of course, embassies would also follow. It was not meant to be a general purpose city. However, based on some wisdom, 8,000 square kilometers of land was taken. But the consultant said you don't need as much as 8,000. All you need is maybe 1,000, let's say 2,000. And then the remaining 6,000 naira can be used for something else. Sorry, 6,000 square kilometers can be used for something else. The second option was, okay, can you just take the 2,000 and the people in the remaining 6,000 will be given back to their states? In other words, people who are originally from Niger State will go back to Niger State. People from Nasarawa State will go back to Nasarawa State. And Obasanjo said, no, I need the whole 8,000 square kilometers. But because I don't have money to pay compensation and resettlement, let these people remain here. And by remaining, they have become citizens of the FCT, and that the federal government will create administrative structure to take care of their welfare. So that is where we were. That was the genesis of the policy of integration. To integrate the original inhabitants, we are not moving them out of the federal capital. If there was need to move you, they will resettle you within the federal capital. That's why we now have resettlement within the federal capital. We have New Lube. within the federal capital. Some people were resettled within Kubwa.
Okay.
Within the federal capital.
Okay.
So we need to understand this
yes.
background.
Hold
so
on to your thoughts.
That's right.
We will take a break now, and then when we return, I'll come to you so that you can shed more light on what Doctor has said. Don't forget, this is still Black or White, and you can follow us and on Instagram and Facebook and all our social media platform. You can also like, share, and keep the conversation going on as we return. We'll be back on this program.
Yo, so here's an opportunity to bring out your beast. Oh, not this kind of beast. I mean, this kind of beast. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Join the biggest car festival Nigeria has ever seen. A tour of the best cars as we drive across the city of Abuja on TV live broadcast and streaming on all platforms. It's a day for drifting cars, muscle cars, vintage beauties, EV cars, and even trucks. If it got power, then it belongs here. Sign up now to get listed. Be part of greatness. Visit www.carfest.live. Fill out the form, and voila, you are in.
Carfest, Abuja 2025.
Welcome back to the Black or White show. And before we went on the break, we were discussing the demolition and also the relocation of the indigenous people of Abuja, right? And before we went on the break, he was also telling us about the original plan of the FCT, the square meters that were needed originally in the original plan, and how that was expanded upon, and how the plan did not really include a budget for the indigenous people of Abuja. Now, sir, before we went on that break, he said something about compensation, right? And what due compensation should look like. So I would like to ask, what do the indigenous people of Abuja, what do they see as due compensation on the part of the government? Being that their lives are being they are evicted from where they are, their lives are being uprooted from where they are, and they have to start life afresh. What is due compensation for you?
Well, first of all, the 8,000 square kilometers you're talking about, if the whole of the development you're seeing in the federal capital city is 2,500. So you can see the largest part of the 8,000 is still left there without development. And this part of the things that we are saying, okay, since the federal capital has come to stay, and we are the citizens of Nigeria, it is better you divide it into two, where the indigenous people can accommodate federal capital city as their state, where they can have administrative governance and have structure, where both the resident and the indigenous can also have their leadership and live as one Nigeria. But let me take you back. Right from 1976, the FCT indigenous people have suffered for violation of human rights, right from the day the announcement was made, because the law demands there should be notice of intention to acquire, which it was not done. And the law demands the ownership of customary right of the land should be carried along in terms of discussions for the outright giving away the ancestral land, which it was not done. So you can see right from the source, the violation of human rights for the indigenous people, which we all know what it takes if you have to pay for human rights violation that has been done for each and every one of the Nigerian citizens. We, the original inhabitants, I think we deserve more in terms of compensation with the federal government to pay attention, even the security that is going on within the part of Nigeria. I think our issue is a signal related to that. But we, God forbid, we don't pray to get to that level. Now, if you talk about the kind of compensation we are talking about, the compensation is a dialogue one, and if the federal government can pay attention to indigenous people, which this is the advocacy that we have been doing right from this Millennium Goals, and the federal government have turned their eyes back on us, But we believe one day things will get better. But it has also, we are no more interested on relocation. We are more interested on having our own state, which Constitution has proffered us that privilege and the right to own an estate. So even the present administration, 2023 judgment between the APC and PDP has also confirmed that. So what we are asking this present federal government to do is to linguish and also separate the office of the Mr. President and the governor of FCT, so that you can't be in the hierarchy and also be in the lower leadership. So these are the things that we're advocating for.
Okay, so you're trying to say that what the indigenous people of Abuja consider due compensation in this day and age is actually being an independent state from the FCT?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let me come in. Let me add some information on this issue of compensation. Compensation is not only a Nigerian thing. Compensation is a global thing. Number one, the Constitution under Section 44 of the Nigerian Constitution, 1999 Constitution as amended, says that you cannot take the property of a Nigerian citizen compulsorily. If you want to take my property, there are procedures that you have to go through. There are rules of engagement. One, there has to be assessment, and I have to be involved in the assessment. You have to involve the High Court, one of the High Courts, or a tribunal to approve the compensation
by the court.
But like he said, when this place was declared federal capital, our opinion was not sought. Our opinion was not considered relevant.
Okay,
It was a military thing.
Let me just come in a little bit. I have a new dimension to this discussion, and I want us to explore these areas very well. Now, the Constitution states that all the land in Nigeria belongs to the government.
Yeah.
The same Constitution
I'm coming, I'll get to it. Having said that, doesn't mean that the indigenous owners are not recognized. But in a situation where the government decides to acquire a land for a purpose, they are given the preference over any other interest. Now, having said that, how much of consultation did the federal government have with the indigenous people of Abuja in the area of relocation and compensation? That's number one. I am of the opinion that at some point, let's say way back during the days of President Olusegun Obasanjo, his civilian rule, we had Governor El Rufai, Minister El Rufai then, that built a lot of resettlement areas. There was an inventory taking. There was a mass distribution of houses to indigenous original inhabitants of Abuja. How much of this was covered in the area of compensation to the Abuja indigents? And then there's stories that the Abuja indigents used to sell their properties to newcomers and then move towards the...
Let me respond to him, sir.
Exactly.
What the Rufai did, Rufai built Gariki, called a poor resettlement. He built Galiwi Shere, where Jabi 1, 2, Maji, Utako to be moved, and up to today they are still existing. They rejected it. So I don't see
Who rejected it?
Our people rejected it.
Why did they reject
How can I
it?
live in the city? Take me to backyard. City met me here.
Those
Federal government met
places
me
you
here.
call backyard now
Yes.
are very
They are
expensive. A
developed.
lot of people are paying
Have you
billions of
taken your
naira.
time and go there, look at the infrastructure, look at the standard of the buildings?
I live in Apo resettlement, and I know your people have a lot of houses there. I'm coming. And
Can
as
I-
we
can I-
speak,
can I- can
as
I
we
come
speak
in
today, so
No,
no,
let
let me
him
land.
land, let him
Let me
land.
land. As we speak today,
Yes.
a unit of house in Apo resettlement costs nothing less than 50 to 60 million naira.
Yes.
No matter how it looks, even if it is just the land. In Apo
You can
resettlement.
only find such in the resident's hand, not in indigenous hand.
That's what I'm saying. Who sold it to the residents?
No. See what happened. The Apo resettlement is being built with two phases, indigenous and the resident. And where the resident comes in is from the officials of the FCT administration themselves.
Was that the plan to give the residents, or was it meant for indigene or for residents?
These are the questions that should be asking the authority. You built this in the name of indigenous people. So how comes the system is being corrupted?
So
Now, can I come in here?
Please.
Let's be clear about compensation and resettlement. It's like we are veering up.
Yeah.
What constitutes compensation?
Fair compensation.
Fair compensation.
yes.
I have a house. And you know there are different types of houses. There's a compound, okay? Then there is a nuclear family house. Here, the morphology of our housing is compound. If you are moving me from my compound, then you should give me another compound. Not giving me 2 bedrooms. That will not solve my problem.
Someone that is used to a compound.
Now, secondly, I'm a farmer. I'm not a civil servant. I'm not a trader. Then you give me 2 rooms without provision for farmland. You have denied me the opportunity to conduct my economic activity and earn a living. Now, yes, El-Rufai may have built some houses. I don't know if he built some houses in Akpo. But if you take the Wise that I mentioned earlier, you see that it is not only houses that were built, farmlands were allocated to allow these people to continue their economic activity. And then we have other examples. When they were building the Jeba Dam, the Kainji Dam, there's what is called New Busa. You can cross-check. They built houses, they built compounds for these people and gave them land for agriculture, for farming. And so when we are talking about compensation, we have to look into that. You give me a house, you don't just come and say, okay, move out within 3 weeks. Move out. That's not fair. There has to be planning because you are dealing with family, you are dealing with wives, you are dealing with children who are going to school. Okay, if you are moving me from one point where my children are going to school to another place where there is no school.
Part of even that.
How do you expect my children to continue with their education? You are denying them. You are denying them the right to education.
Part of even that, sir, since 1970s, the law the same Nigerian constitution provide the criteria how compensation should be and who to determine the compensation.
Okay.
It's the court of the law.
How compensation should be and who should determine, that is where we'll start up from when we come back from the break. Before we round up, that's going to be our last stretch on the conversation. So it's still Black or White, and we're talking to the people that knows the story and history of Abuja, and I'm glad everybody is taking one note or the other. Now you can join us on our social media platform where you can follow us up on this conversation, and right about now, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll be on the last lap of the episode of Black and White. Don't go nowhere.
Yo, so here's an opportunity to bring out your beast. Oh, not this kind of beast. I mean, this kind of beast. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Join the biggest car festival Nigeria has ever seen. A tour of the best cars as we drive across the city of Abuja on TV live broadcast and streaming on all platforms. It's a day for drifting cars, muscle cars, vintage beauties, EV cars, and even trucks. If it got power, then it belongs here. Sign up now to get listed. Be part of greatness. Visit www.carfest.live. Fill out the form, and voila, you are in.
Carfest, Abuja 2025.
Okay, welcome back. It's still Black or White on the show today. We've been talking about the compensation and the indigenous inhabitants of Abuja, what they have been their plight, and then we're talking before we went on the break. We're talking about compensation and how it went. So, give us a breakdown on that shortly, so that we can move on, because we're about to wrap up this wrap up here.
Now, those who are into application of land acquisition in FCT, I think the criteria is to pay 100,000 for the form. And why you pay 100,000? Because there is a huge amount of money that you will pay to indigenous people when you meet them face to face. But when the government does that, there's no law that back the developer to compensate anybody in Federal Capital Territory, except
But they do pay compensation.
it's against the law what they're doing.
But the indigenous people collect.
No, they don't.
No.
Let me
Normal
come- let me-
practice,
let me come
normal
in- let me
practice,
come
you're
in here.
supposed
So
to
they
approach
just
the
come into your
government.
lands and take.
The Constitution says government is supposed to pay compensation and resettle the people before it now has the right to allocate.
Any land.
That is
You
not
don't-
happening now.
you
That is
don't
not what
give
is happening.
You don't have. That's not happening. So what's happening now is that government makes allocation to estate developers.
Okay.
And then now asks
Push
estate
the responsibility
developers
to them.
to pay compensation.
And how does
which
that
is, which
affect
is
your
wrong.
community?
So it's like stealing my property.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
But the developers, don't they pay compensation?
They don't pay compensation because what is compensation? Compensation says there has to be assessment. Compensation says that I have to be involved in the assessment. Compensation says that a court of law has to be involved.
I have
Compensation-
situation whereby
wait,
people I know
compensation
have
says-
bought land
No,
in
no.
Edu, and
what
they
they
can't
pay,
develop
no,
it
what they pay,
because
what they
they
pay, sir,
compensation.
what they paid is buying economic street that I plan on the land. When you pay for the compensation of the economic street, you have to move the economic street and make use of it and go. What of the land? I own the land. You didn't pay for compensation for the land. You pay economic street, just like you go to market, buy a goosey, and go back home and make use of it. So what they paid, the developers, is buying economic streets, not to pay for the land.
So the government does not compensate the landowners.
Oh,
apart
never,
from
the estate developers do also
never,
do that.
never.
And I told you that there are several components of compensation. You're moving me from my house to another house. The law says you have to build another house for me. Not just come and give me 1 million naira and say I should build my house in 3 weeks. One, you are also moving me from my agricultural district. That's my economic mainstay. The law says give me land so that I'll continue with my economic activity. Two, my children are going to school in Garki. You're moving me from Garki to a new place where there is no school. How are they supposed to go to school?
What
So
is
these-
the way?
these are the issues.
What is the way forward?
The way forward is that we have models. I mentioned the Kainji project, that before the people in Kainji were moved, the federal government built houses, compounds for them, and they allocated land for agriculture, and built schools for them, and built hospitals for them, and provided all kinds of infrastructure before they are moved, because you are dealing with human beings. Even if you are dealing with an animal, if you are growing chicken, and you want to move from one point to the other, you have to build another house before you move the chicken. But when you just come and say move within 3 weeks, that's no compensation. So what we expect is that there should be planning. You are dealing with human beings. You're not dealing with animals. You're dealing with citizens of Nigeria. You're not dealing with foreigners. Even if you are dealing with foreigners, there is a minimum threshold that you should not go below. We are citizens. The federal government is treating the FCT as if it's a colony, and Nigeria is a metropolitan, and we are treated like slaves who have neither rights nor privileges. But the same constitution says that if you are a citizen of Nigeria, you should not be denied any rights or privileges that other citizens are enjoying. Is there in the constitution? So
Right to property,
we want
right
be
to
treated-
life.
We want to be treated like citizens of Nigeria that we are. We don't want to be discriminated on the grounds that we are original inhabitants. That's contrary to the constitution. We don't want this place to be treated like a colony. This is part of Nigeria.
Okay, sir. So before we round up the show, right, what would you say about the representation of the indigenous people of Abuja in government and decision making concerning this?
Let me start with the Senate. All the states in the Federation, whether you have a population of 1 million or 200,000, you have 3 senators in the Senate. The FCT with a population of 6 million has only 1 senator. That's discrimination. Then let's go to the House of Representatives. There's a state that has up to 44 people in the House of Rep. The FCT with a population of 6 million has only 2 members in the House of Rep. That's discrimination. How do you expect 2 people to adequately represent 6 million people? How do you expect 1 senator to adequately represent a
A
population
lot
of
of
6
people
million
will tell you that as it is now, the National Assembly is overbloated. We should cut down the cost of governance by reducing the number of people in the House of Assembly. Are you saying that that does not make sense? We need to make it...
Yeah, it makes sense. Do you know why?
Yes.
FCT State of Assembly combined with the National. Separate them. Let the people that you're indigenous or resident enjoy the dividends of democracy.
Now, are they saying that they should cut down because the FCT has only one?
No, that is not the reason. The reason
Are they
is
saying they
that
should
we
cut down
have.
because the FCT original inhabitants are demanding for more?
So
That's still discrimination.
I agree with you.
We are saying the Constitution says that the federal
If
constituencies...
other states are getting up to 44,
Other states are getting up to
They should
44.
get more.
Sir,
because they have
and we are
one
getting
in the
only
Senate
two.
and
Sir,
300
all
governors.
these go down. Both the resident and the indigenous, we must come together and speak, because if you're Chinedu or you have your voters card in the FCT, when the governor of your state, the day of the election, you can't leave FCT because you have a FCT voters card. So you are being discriminated. So separate FCT into two. There should be federal capital city and there's federal capital territorial administration. So
that the original inhabitants like me and the residents like you, who don't have a right to go and vote for your governor when they are doing gubernatorial election, can have a governor. As it is now, I'm being discriminated. I can never be a governor in my life because I happen to be an original inhabitant of the FCT. Am I a full Nigerian?
I get that is very, very interesting.
See,
it's very
and-
key.
and-
On that point, we have to round up now. On that point, it's very key. I mean, I think it is very important to
The last
note,
word.
Yeah, to note that to know that there's
The
a
last word.
discrimination at some point.
The last word. I want to
10
educate.
seconds.
Okay. I want to educate the resident of FCT to hold the FCT administration into criminality activities, in the sense that how can you collect grant rent when you don't have the grant? How can you collect payment for CO4 for a land when you don't have the land? Why? Why are Nigerians paying that?
That's another key. So we'll look at that. I think the conversation continues on our social media platform.
Yeah.
Please like and share on our social media platform. It's still Black and White. And on this note, we are rounding up this program today. Let the conversation go on our social media platform. Well, from my position, Precious, you have one more word to go.
All I just have to say is the FCT was created because they wanted to build unity in Nigeria, right? And when the indigenous people that we are the original inhabitants of the FCT are crying that they are not represented properly, where is unity that the FCT claims to actually be?
Okay, where is the unity? And that is why we call it a day today. Thank you for joining us. See you again on the next one.